And welcome everyone to another episode of the Real Estate Mixtape. I'm your host, Jason Brown, the Charlotte agent, and we are here with Brian Kovaleski. How are we doing today, Brian?
Doing great, my friend. Hope you are too.
Doing well. Had a couple issues with going live there, but I think we got all the technical difficulties ironed out. But nonetheless, let's go back through what we were saying to ourselves here for a couple minutes there, which is we're on the third installment, 90 days to your first investment property. On the first episode, we looked at what are the kind of the cheaper ways, the least money out of pocket kind of approach. The second installment, second episode, we looked at having a house, but now whether you're renting or owning, really, just wanting to start buying investment properties. We looked at also establishing an LLC. We looked at what type of information and data you're going to need to demonstrate to the lender about the lease that you're going to have for your tenant. So now we are here and ready to go for the third and final installment. Today, we are going to be looking at what would be the process if you were currently, sorry, getting a little feedback here. Hold on 1 second. Come off that, but I can see myself. I don't need to hear myself. There we go. All right. So what would be the process? So let's say a man or a woman has bought a house. They may not have been thinking about investing in the future, but lo and behold, they have found a significant other and they are ready to just grow that family. And it's not going to grow in that 2-bedroom townhome or that 1-bedroom condo or even the 3-bedroom home that they have, right? They just need another bedroom or just more space, larger front yard, larger backyard. So Brian, in terms of that, let's start at the beginning, and we're going to look at them being able to carry 2 payments. What would they need to demonstrate to the lender? Because they own a home, but they're trying to buy house number 2 as an owner occupant.
So the easiest way to do it, both for yourself and for your lender, is if you can carry both house payments at the same time. You make enough money, your debt to income ratio is really low, you can absorb your entire current house payment plus the new house payment. That is by far the easiest way to do it. And then you can just put a renter in there at your convenience after you move out. If you can't do that, it's going to depend on the type of loan that you're using to purchase your new home. Is it conventional? Is it FHA? You're going to start with, in either scenario, you start with a lease. You can get a lease that's going to start 30 to 60 days in the future. When you've moved out, the next guy's got to move in. If you're going conventional on your new purchase, all you need is the lease.
All you need is the lease for the conventional side.
Exactly. There's your rent. You're going to get 75% of that to wash against the current house payment. And the difference gets plugged into your DTI, but that definitely lightens the load in terms of your debt to income ratio. If you're using
you said 75%. So remind the listeners of what you were actually referring to with that 75%.
So if the rental income is not on your tax returns yet, you're going to go off your lease. And whatever's on your lease for rent, you're going to get 75% of that as additional income to count against your current house payment. So if your current house payment is $750 and you can rent that out for $1,000 a month,
then
your lease says $1,000, but you're going to get credit for $750. That perfectly offsets the $750 for your house. Yeah.
And that's because they haven't put it on their taxes yet.
Correct.
If they have already declared that on their taxes, then will they be able to get the full 100%? Depending on, I guess, their losses they may have claimed or something like that, or
exactly. Okay. There's an entire spreadsheet flow form straight from the government that you just plug in it looks just like your tax return. You just plug in
Right.
numbers that you filed on your taxes, and it'll spit out a
Gotcha.
number that says, here's the income that you're going to be allowed to use.
And we went over that last episode. Right.
A little bit, yep. Yeah.
Okay. So that's the conventional side, right? Okay.
Yeah. So conventional is very easy. FHA may make you jump through a few more hoops.
Okay.
They may want to see a security deposit equivalent to 1 month's rent. They might even, and this is, depending on how the specific lender feels about your situation, they may call to verify the person on the lease is actually going to move in and what date they're going into.
Gotcha.
So a few extra hoops to jump through, nothing terrible, but it's going to start with the lease. You're going to list it for rent, not to start immediately though. It's going to start, a month or two in the future once you move out. But then you're going to go ahead and get that and show that to your lender, and then they'll use that income to help you qualify for your new house.
Okay, very good. So, and this is, Brian, why I think I'm going to really do a series. Actually, already have some people lined up for next week about real estate and relationships. And this falls into when you are looking to level up with your significant other or your significant other to be. One of the questions you're going to need to know, or one of the questions you're going to want to ask so that you know the answer is, how much debt do you have? How much debt are you bringing to the table? What is your credit score? And more importantly, what is your debt to income ratio? Right. I know of couples that weren't able to level up like they wanted to, right? Because one of the players on the team there was making good income, but had a crazy low credit score.
Right. Yep. We see that a lot.
And you and I have had prospective clients who they were on one accord with the type of house they wanted, when they wanted the house. But when it came to what came back on the credit report, when it came to looking at that debt to income ratio. So look out for that series, relationships, or real estate and relationships. I think I may call it like real relationships or something like that.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Just a quick plug. Next week, I will be going live on a podcast. We're going to look at, for those women who are looking for love, which should come first, the home or the husband? And I'm going to have some guests here, and we're going to go in. It's going to be so good. All right, so back, I want to get back on task here. Okay, so best case scenario, you make enough money, your debt to income ratio is good, you can carry both. That way you can take your time in renting it. But if you can't do that, then you need to offset the mortgage for that first home. And this means for conventional loan, you have to provide a lease. And for FHA, you're going to need to demonstrate not only a lease, but a security deposit and possibly 1 month's worth of rent. And the lender may reach out to that prospective tenant just to say, hey, are you going to be occupying the property? Now, that lender can't ask the tenant for any financials, right? To show
no. They can't do that.
They don't have to demonstrate they're strong enough to take on. Okay, very good. So now let's look at the down payment. So we have house number one, looking at house number two. What changes in terms of the down payment for house number two?
Nothing really. So that the house that you're now buying, that's your primary residence. And anytime you're buying a primary residence, you're going to go off of primary residence guidelines. It's going to be a minimal down payment. Gotcha. So again, just like we talked about this kind of loops back to the very first episode we did. You get into the house as a primary residence as cheaply as possible.
Gotcha.
And then eventually we're going to turn it into a rental. Well, the new house we're buying is now our primary residence again. So if you wanted to, you could do a very minimal down payment. You're going to get primary residence interest rates, owner-occupied interest rates. It's going to work and feel exactly like when you bought the last house that you're going to turn into a rental.
Right. So the fact that the tenant hasn't moved in because they haven't yet moved out of the first house, the fact that you don't have any payments that have been made as of yet, they're still going to treat your debt to income as if the rent that you're receiving will be receiving is already there. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so very good. Okay, now here's an interesting. Now, I'm sorry, before I rush along. What about mortgage insurance? Is that going to be higher or lower? How are they going to treat that
On your existing house that's becoming a rental, or that on your new house?
on your new house?
Your new house, it's going to be whatever it is based off of owner occupied mortgage insurance. So if you're putting
Okay,
less than 20% down, yeah, you may have mortgage insurance. It's going to work exactly like it's going to be as cheap as possible though, because it'll be owner occupied.
okay, very good.
Yeah.
All right, so let's jump into another question that a lot of people are having, especially coming now, hopefully, which seems to be, we thought we were on the back end of this pandemic, but kind of pushed us back towards the middle. Equity lines of credit and refinancing in terms of cashing out. The
Okay.
question that people are having is, hey, I have a property that has equity. I've been living in Charlotte for so many years. I've owned this property for 6 years. I'm just seeing prices go up around me. There's credit cards that I may want to pay off. There may be a car or a student loan that I really want to knock a dent into in terms of how much I owe. And the two most popular ways of doing that or trying to leverage the property that you're paying a mortgage on that you own is equity line of credit and refinancing.
Mm-hmm.
Let's look at what goes into refinancing because there's a little more numbers in there. In our scenario, we have a home that's worth 300,000. The amount of principal left on that loan is 200,000.
Okay.
So walk us through, Brian, how much we can cash out.
So it depends on the type of loan. Always. Conventional, you could cash out up to 80% of your home's value. So off
Okay.
of 300,000, that's 240,000. You owe 200, so you're going to net the 40,000 minus closing costs, right?
Very good.
FHA will let you take out up to 85%. So they'll let you cash out a little bit more. So both of those are viable options. It depends what you want to use the money for. That's really going to be the top of what you can take out though. A line of credit, and I don't do lines of credit. My
Correct.
company is not
Oh,
going
like
to.
a bank, like a credit union, something like that.
I would recommend a credit union. Big banks will tell you to your face that that's not really their strong suit either. They'll do
Okay.
it, but it's worse terms, it's worse interest rates. I usually recommend some sort of credit union.
And this is why most people should have an open account with a credit union, whether
Yeah.
you do all your the primary portion of your banking through one of these massive other banks or even the smaller bank, you should have an account with the credit union. Okay, go ahead. So equity
So
line of credit.
yeah, so the advantage of that is, and this changes constantly, especially with COVID. So again, I'm not going to speak for the current environment or every credit union out there, but generally speaking, you could get a line of credit up to 90% of your home's value. So you've
Okay.
already picked up an extra 5 to 10%. The rates are usually reasonable. You know, are they quite as low as a first mortgage on your house?
Probably not. No. Yeah.
Probably not quite that low.
Right.
But the advantage on top of being able to borrow more money is you're only going to pay on what you've borrowed.
And let's explain that because in a refinancing, we are cashing out. House is worth 300,000. We owe 200. You said for conventional, that's like your Fannie Mae, your Freddie Mac. We're looking at 80%. So if you do 8 times 3, that's 240,000. But we owe 200. So once I subtract those numbers, the 40,000 is what I can pull out.
And you're
But
going to
I'm
pay on
pulling
that.
that,
Go
right?
ahead.
You're pulling that out at one time. Is that correct, Brian? And you're going to pay on that, right?
Yep, you get all of it right now, immediately. Do whatever you want to with it, but you are going to pay on that 40,000 for the 30-year term on a 30-year mortgage.
Almost like a second. I mean, that's like a second mortgage in a sense, tied to that
No,
property in a sense.
no, it's going to be one mortgage. It's a new mortgage payment. and you're just going to make the payment.
Right. I'm sorry. I'm jumping ahead to equity line. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's right.
The equity
So
line, yeah,
you're taking everything that you owe. That's right. You're
yeah,
refinancing that. Now, when you go to an equity line, which is, sorry, jumping ahead, with that, that is a separate payment because, and you're only paying on what you have used. So you can have access, let's say 90%, 300,000, it's 270,000. I owe 200. So now I have $70,000 I have access to. I don't have to use all that 70,000 at once, right? I can just, I can just pick what, 10,000 here and then another year, another 10,000. And then,
you nailed it earlier when you said it's almost like a credit card that's tied to your house. So you could be approved for the 70,000, but if you only took out the initial 30 or 40, that's fine. You're only going to pay the interest rate on that 30 or 40. And once you pay that off, I have a lot of people, for some reason, they say, hey, I need the money now, but I can pay this chunk of it off in the next 3 to 5 years. Once you pay it off, that payment goes away.
That payment goes away. And this is according to your credit.
Yeah.
As well. This is, okay.
Boost your credit. Give you flexibility in the medium to long term. It could make your bills cheaper because, again, once you pay off that chunk, that payment goes away versus you just refinance the mortgage. Mm-hmm. That's the new payment for the next 30 years.
Gotcha. And I think some people have done that, especially if they wanted to do some massive remodeling or do a massive update, like add a pool or whatever have you. Yeah. So they've been able to do that, add an additional garage, extend the house, for those kind of odds and ends. Okay, well, that's very good. And I'm not going to beat this to a dead horse at this point in time because we're going to start it next week, but know who you are in relationship with. If you are single, I will bring on a guest, hopefully, if they are, will allow themselves to be vulnerable enough and it doesn't start any kind of mess at home. I want to bring in a husband and wife and different husband and wives and different ones that had different scenarios.
Yeah.
I owned a property before we got married. Neither one of us owned a property before we got married or when we got married. We got married and we were cool with renting, but then we want to go buy a house. Mm-hmm. And it turns out that one person, is in this position, second, yada, yada. So it's very interesting.
It happens all the time. Yeah. I wouldn't want to pick which one of us sees it more, but it's always, well, I've got good credit, but they make all the income. Okay, right. Well, that doesn't work. If you need their income, they need workable credit.
Right.
Or they've got the good credit, but they've got 200 grand in student loans. Like, well, that's gonna set you back. So,
and I could so imagine a situation where, let's say they've gone through house number 1 and house number 2. Mm-hmm. They're living good. And one, I'm not going to say whether it's the husband or the wife, whatever, but one of them wants a pool. And they may not have the cash. And then the spouse who didn't own a property before getting married looks at the spouse that continues to own that property before and after they got married. And says, well, don't you have any money you can pull out of that?
Right.
Didn't you hear Jason and Brian talking that house is $300,000? Couldn't you go down to your credit union?
Right.
I want to leave that non-gender specific who wants the pool. Non-gender specific. It can be either or. It can be a guy wanting a guy's den. It could be a woman wanting an extended patio, or vice versa. Because I like an extended patio, my daggone self, actually. But
absolutely.
Oh yeah, I like entertaining and all that stuff. But this is real life stuff, Brian. These are actual scenarios and situations that you and I have seen happen and continue to see happen
repeatedly. It usually boils down to 2 or 3 scenarios over and over and over again.
Right.
You need two people's income to get where you want to be, and one person, either their credit isn't there or one person's carrying too much debt. It's usually some combination of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or someone has have to work so hard and for so long to build up the nest egg, the savings, and they don't want to see all that get depleted so quickly
Ooh, that's a good one. That's
with
a
the
good
down
one.
payment. You see what I'm saying? See where I'm
Yeah,
going with that one?
we see that a lot too.
But
Yeah, I'm gonna
anyway,
be a
I
fly on the
digress.
wall on your on your next podcast. I want to hear how this goes down.
Oh, it's going to be great. One guest I have coming in, she just bought a home. She's single, and meaning single, not just and not married, but she's single and doesn't have a current significant other. The other guest is actually married. I've known this couple for a good number of years now, and their family. People in their family, they did multiple transactions with me, and they're like family to me. She owned a property prior to getting married, still has that property. So she's going to be able to offer us what kind of discussions her and her husband had to have prior to getting married, after getting married, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm going to be looking to bring on a single male who is currently not on the brink of getting engaged, because I think that guys, yeah, we may be single in terms of marital status, but if we know we're going to marry the woman that we're with, then we're really not
That's
single.
different. That's
Yeah,
different.
we're off the market. We're off the market. So I need a guy who, and if you're listening on Facebook, if you know of any guy who owns his own property, condo, townhome, single family home, doesn't matter, please have him message me, because I need to bring one on, preferably who's not in a serious relationship, because I want the women to be able to hear what is actually going on in his mind, in his thinking. How has he played out this scenario in terms of, well, when I do find the right one, what am I willing to do? What am I willing not to do?
I don't know if you remember this, but you made a brilliant comment a couple podcasts ago where you said, generally speaking, men may be a little bit more agreeable to that first house being a fixer-upper that they're going to flip into a rental. Whereas
Correct.
a female, it may need to be a bit more ready to go. Better neighborhood, better house. I mean, those are real discussions that people have to have.
Real discussions, because he could be on a 2-year master plan, and and when they meet, he just closed on his home maybe a quarter ago or 5 months ago, even 2 quarters, 6 months ago, and they hit it off and they're serious and they're running. She may not want to move into where he is. So now we are, Brian, in that situation that we've gone over today, where we own a home. Now it's time to level up. Now it's time to purchase home number 2, right? So it's going to be very interesting. So for those who are wanting to tune in next week, it's going to be next Thursday. I believe we're going to do that one at 7 p.m. We're going to go live on Facebook, live on YouTube, both on my personal page on Facebook and at the Charlotte Agent business page on Facebook. It's going to be great. It's going to be fun. Women looking for love. Which comes first, the home or the husband? We're going to have fun. It's going to be so much fun.
That
well,
sounds
Brian,
good.
Thank you so much. Will you want to give the folks your email address so they have any questions? Maybe they can email you.
Oh gosh, let me give out my phone number, I guess.
Yeah, go ahead. Give out the phone number so they can call you up. Most definitely.
704-516-6627. Call me anytime. Any questions that have come up from the podcast that you've seen me and Jason do, and we'll be happy to help you.
And if you're watching this podcast later, please feel free, send me any of your questions, message me at any time, message Brian at any time, and I think we're good to go. That wraps up the third and final episode of the 90 Days to Your First Investment Property. Also, as a gift to all of our listeners and subscribers, I will be sending out by request. When you request it, a free guide that goes over all 3 episodes that has the information that we went over, the steps you should take, the mentality that you should have, what should be your focus, thinking short term, long term. And Brian, sneak peek into this, I'm even breaking it down week by week. So the first
Hey.
chapter is the first 30 days.
Yeah,
Even those 30 days, I'm breaking down to 4 weeks.
that's nice.
So you
Good.
can take all that information and okay, the first week of the first 30 days, etc. So for that, if you want to get a free copy of that, all you have to do is go to my Instagram page, the Charlotte Agent, like the Instagram page, and then send me a message with your email address, and I will email it direct to you. Or you can subscribe. Getting tongue tied all day today. Subscribe to my podcast. You can find it on Apple Podcasts. You can find it on Spotify. It's going to be the Real Estate Mixtape. Subscribe to that and send me a message, and we will get you going. That's totally free for you, our listeners. Well, once again, thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Thanks for having me, buddy. See you
All
again.
right. Goodbye, everybody.